Well, we will go ahead and get started. If you're just joining us, whether on LinkedIn or on Zoom, we have been asking where you're joining us from. But I would love to start by saying, welcome to the Senior Living Sizzle by SalesMail. Today, I'm joined by Maria Feitlich from Capri Communities, and we will be talking all about referral strategies. So, we want to really center this discussion around one topic. The best referral strategies aren't one way. So, how do you become the person your partners think of first and create those relationships where referrals naturally flow both directions? So, the big takeaway that we want is how to build stronger, mutually beneficial referral relationships instead of just asking for them. So I'd love to know, where do you get most of your referrals from? Are they from other senior living communities? Do you get them from your care partners like home care and home health? And so if you want to drop that in the chat, no matter what industry you're in, where do you get your referrals from? And Maria, I would love to ask you, where do you get most of your referrals from?
Yeah, well, hello everyone. Maria Feitlich, as Sarah had mentioned, part of Capri Communities. So currently I am in a senior living community. So we've got independent living, assisted living, and memory care. And I would say our referrals really come from everywhere. You've got the word of mouth from the actual residents that live here. They've no friends. There's different rehab center, nursing homes, where they'll make that referral when somebody's done with their rehab stay, different home health or in-home care agencies as well. And then what's actually really interesting too is sometimes hospices can make referrals because there might be a spouse on the other end that doesn't want to live alone and wants to be in that senior living environment. So it's a spectrum of all of the above.
So as we kind of go through this conversation and you're thinking to yourself, okay, you visit those same referral partners, you drop off goodies, you send emails, you attend the networking events, but I want everybody to keep in the back of your mind, are those activities actually creating relationships that generate referrals? So as we start talking about this, I want you to keep in mind those people that you're constantly talking to. And so in order to talk about the people that we're constantly talking to, we really have to understand the senior care referral ecosystem. And this is something that I had to be educated on time and time again. Every time I thought I knew everybody in the senior care arena, a new player would enter. And so it started, you said you're in a senior living community. I was in an independent living community. And so when I first started, I was like, okay, this is one part of senior living. And then you hear about assisted living and memory care and skilled nursing facilities. And I was like, okay, I understand like the levels now. But then I started hearing about how home health and home care could come into our community and offer services. And I would learn about, hospice with end of life and terminal illness. And then I even started learning about how we got referrals from hospitals and rehabs. And so there are so many different players in the senior care ecosystem. And one thing that I think is really important is that it's not a line. It's not a straight line. So sometimes they kind of hop around and, things progress, things worsen sometimes. And so I always like to keep in mind that someone who is a lead today and it doesn't work out with you doesn't necessarily mean that that's a lost lead. So it might be, you can refer them to somebody else. They might be a client in the future. They might be a source for a referral, like, hey, it didn't work out with us, but I still had a great time talking with Maria, and she's a great, asset for this journey for somebody else. So I would love to hear, have you had any experience with that? What is it like when you lose a lead, but you still gain something from it?
Yeah, and you make a beautiful point too. It's like the line isn't parallel. Like everyone plays nice in the sandbox because sometimes, especially in that senior living environment, sometimes I might be full and it's like, where do I actually send these people? So who are my trusted like competitions? You actually want to know what's out there and market yourself to other senior living communities because I know here in Wisconsin, I'm not sure if other states have this, but there's different licensures when it comes to assisted livings. And let's say somebody doesn't need memory care, but they need that higher acuity assisted living. And it's like, okay, who is a sister campus or who is another local senior living community that I can make that referral or bridge that gap to? And the other thing too, from that point is like, if you're full in assisted living and memory care and you have an independent living community and somebody does need that help, who are those in-home care agencies that can help support? Who are those home health agencies? That way they don't have to move because they can like stay local, bring in kind of that partnership that you guys have with in-home or home health agencies while you're waiting for a room to open up in your assisted living. So there's also too, it's also a win-win too, because that person ends up staying in your campus. And it's also too, they're able to provide support from other outside agencies.
Absolutely. And I think like bringing up home care and home health, I know there were so many times where I thought we were going to get a resident because of that referral. Like, okay, they were in the hospital, they had surgery, and then they need that home health, and then their home health expires, but now they still need that help with home care. And just having those connections with those referral sources are what ultimately brought them into my community when it was time for them. So, staying front of mind for our referral sources is really important because even though they're not our residents yet, we could be the people that they're like, hey, you're ready for this next step in your senior living journey. This is where you should go. So I think it's always really important to have a vast type of referral source, but always staying in front of mind.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I do want to transition into how we can start making that mutually beneficial referral relationship. And so I know the traditional approach is somebody comes in. I know for me in a community, it would be at the most inopportune times. Like I'm in the middle of processing invoices. And there's a
Bingo.
knock on the door, and it's like, hey, this is who I am. Here's what we do. Here's our brochure. Keep us in mind. And I'm like, great. I don't remember what number I was about to type in. And so I think the better approach is somebody that's really going to come in and get to know you, get to know your community and your residents. And they start asking questions like, what kind of situations are difficult for your team right now? And how can I help? And so I think this is where I had to train myself as well to go, okay, this is how my community can help other people. So I would love to discuss that with you, Maria. What are some questions that people ask you and you're like, wow, I can really tell that you care about me, about my community and my residents?
Yeah, and I'm right there with you because sometimes, even for myself, when I go visit hospitals or rehab centers, I come at the worst timing ever, and it works vice versa. What's actually really neat in those opportunities too is sometimes I might be with a resident's family and I can just say, hey, here's my colleague from X, Y, and Z organization. And that could just be like just an instant connection on just like, hey, just an FYI, we do have hospice that comes in. We do have a home health agency that comes in. So I kind of look at it as too of just not necessarily as just like, oh, we're interrupting each other's day, but it's like, hey, we actually might be able to capitalize your quick visit or your quick drop by. So I think that's been very helpful too. Does that kind of answer that question? I know there's kind of like
Yeah,
that two-part too. And then too, when it comes to also building up those community partnership is obviously having those brochures out, but also being able to like sponsor some of like the resident activities. Because at the end of the day, it is residents' choice and their families on like who they use as an organization. So I think what I've seen is really helpful is anytime there's like different open houses or a dance that we're hosting or a bingo, there are community partners that are able to host just to help us offset some costs. And then asking for that opportunity to be like, hey, can I have like a 2-minute PSA to be like, hey, I'm from this company. Like these are the services that we can provide. Because I think that is so helpful to not only you guys, but also us, because we might not know all the bells and whistles to the organizations and all the care that you guys can provide. Sometimes we might know just like the surface level of these are the resources that they can provide, but you guys really know that story. So how can you get into those communities and get behind those residents versus necessarily just relying on us to kind of spread that word. Is that
absolutely.
helpful?
Yeah, I definitely remember during my time in senior living, the people that were always front of mind, not only for me, but for my residents, were the people that put themselves in front of my residents. So, I can think of a couple home care and home health agencies that would come in and they would sponsor bingo prizes, or there was like a penny toss we did one time. I've never heard more hooting and hollering from some residents than doing like penny tossing. But after that, they were like, okay, who are those people? Like, what do they do? And the more I could, explain and educate them on the services, the more they were like, oh, okay, like I might could benefit from that. So I definitely think getting in front of not only the people in the community, but the residents that are actually going to utilize the service is super
Mhm.
important.
And I do kind of want to
So,
piggyback off that too. Like, not
yeah.
necessarily, obviously capitalizing on the events that we have, but sometimes we need help running events. Like, we need to spark those ideas. So, if you've got an awesome idea, come knocking on our doors and just be like, hey, I want to do a coffee bar for your staff. Like, absolutely. Come on down where we don't have to do that much legwork. And then that's just such a prime opportunity for you to showcase your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, shoe on the other foot, because, as much as we have people coming into the community to tell us about the services that they offer and how we can be partners, there's also the part where we have to go out into the community and do the same thing. And so, how do we make sure that when we're going out, we are not being that person that's like, okay, what you got for me this time? And so I would love to hear, how do you do that? When you go out, how do you make that really important connection with your referral sources?
Yeah. So kind of two parts. Obviously, one, seeing if I can, get in touch with them or at least give like a nice goodie bag, but also following up. So a lot of the times, regardless if it's me going out or somebody coming in, or doing like a lunch and learn, I actually utilize sales mail to be like, hey, thank you for taking the time to actually dive a little bit deeper into your organization. That way it gives us a little bit more clarity as well. So I've actually utilized sales mail as also a tool to kind of leverage my time management because sometimes it takes a toll to actually go do outreach, especially and then you're like, oh, I've got all these voicemails to listen to. So it's like, how do you capitalize on those resources that you have, whether it's sending a quick voice note to somebody, sending a quick sales mail. So I've actually been utilizing a lot more there just because my bandwidth sometimes I'm not available to physically like go in and be, go be in that building. I've just been super grateful for that platform.
Oh, well, thanks. I love to hear being able to use that as part of your communication cadence. And I think that does bring up an important topic of, you get super busy in senior living. Like the tours are rolling in, the move-ins are rolling in,
Yeah.
and of course there is still the building to run when it's full. And so I think it's always important to talk about the cadence in which we are following up with our referral sources. So I know, like for me, our referral sources are typically our clients. And so I just like to make sure that I'm staying top of mind. But in senior living, it can be a lot of people, and I know that they're all busy too. So, what do you do to stay top of mind without being annoying? I know you said that you kind of use sales mail, but do you have a certain cadence that you use with your referral partners, or is it just when the feeling strikes?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the season. I'll be honest, some seasons I feel a little bit stronger, and other seasons I feel like I could give a little bit more TLC that I can. But I would say in the consistent seasons of having that cadence, I'm just like, okay, what are the outreach opportunities that I have? What are the networking opportunities where there are people in the same industry all in one room, capitalizing on that opportunity as well, because there's multiple people there. You can kind of touch base with more people, but actually focusing on quality versus quantity is something that I've kind of grown over the last year. Because before I was just, knocking on doors. Here's the gift bag. I'm Maria here at St. Catherine Commons. Did it work? Yes, but it could have been, I wanted like a yes exclamation point, like, yes, this worked. So actually just being mindful of who are those quality conversations that I'm having. Because sometimes there are different competitors or different organizations that already have like locked in contracts or this and that. So those are a little bit tougher to get through. It's like, okay, how do I just kind of stay top of mind? How do I send them a sales mail? How do I like check in? Or maybe also fine tune on just like when is their birthday or maybe like some special occasion. Because everyone's giving gifts around Valentine's Day or around the same amount of time or Nurses Week and this and that. But how do you set yourself apart and maybe capitalizing on some of those fun like national days like National Tea Day or National like Popcorn Day and sending out popcorn. So those are just a couple of things that I've just kind of started to like dab into of what makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So we had a Poppin' for Your Pops concert across the street. We've got a band show, which is really cool. So we had popcorn. One of it got rained out, and it's like, okay, how do we give back to the local fire departments? Where I don't know if we're necessarily going to get like a referral source from them, but they're here on a regular basis. That's the number that,
Right.
folks in memory care tend to remember. So it's just
Yeah.
like, as just kind of like a thank you because we don't know, even though they may not refer from the fire department, they might have loved ones that will eventually need senior living. So it's
Yep.
not necessarily, so really it's any the senior at the end of the day, veterans cafes and all that. So
Absolutely. I think That kind of makes me think. So, one of my long term, I consider her a friend now. She started as a home care, home health rep that came into my building, and she just happened to walk in one day, and I had been through the ringer, and I had a resident who didn't have any family, and I was trying to help her get services, and it was one of those like kismet things where it just happened at the right time. And the reason she always stayed front of mind is it was almost like she could read my mind when something happened and I needed her, and she would just send me a quick text message like, "Hey, how are things going?" But you bring up like she was one of those people. She knew when my birthday was. When I had my first child, she brought a gift when I returned from maternity leave. And so it's those things that definitely stick with you. And she was always front of mind when somebody needed services. I automatically thought of Corey. And
Hmm.
so that she was the first person I would call. And I think it's also important because she was the kind of person that would come in. And when I first met her, I was like, okay, like what services do you offer? And she could tell me, but she did ask the questions that are important in getting to know your referral partners. So I wanted to touch on some of those questions so that you guys in the audience can start hearing what you need to from your referral partners and so that you can have that symbiotic relation with them. So, what does your ideal referral look like? What situations are not a good fit for you? So, this was a huge one for me. Like I said, I worked in an independent living community. There was only so much we could do. And so I think that's important for you too, Maria, right? Like if your assisted living is full and you only have independent living, there is, a limit to what can be done in that setting.
Hmm.
What are families struggling with when they come to you? That was a huge one, knowing what services my residents might need. Where do families tend to get stuck? This is a big one, especially when they're in that prospect setting. So, where is the hesitation with moving in? How can we help that? And then, what resources do you wish you had more access to? So, just asking those questions when getting to know your referral partners can be super important in making sure that your relationship moving forward is going to be helpful, that you're going to be asking the right questions, knowing the right information to send them qualified leads, which we've already talked on. You don't want every lead in the book because they might not be right for your community and you might not be right for them. So I love those questions and making sure that you know what you need to be for them.
Hmm.
So we talked a little bit about how referral sources come into your community and they kind of offer information and education on what services they have. Do you ever do that on the other foot? Do you ever go places and kind of talk about your community and educate people on what services you offer?
Yeah, I have. I don't know if I necessarily have to the extreme or as much as like other, business development managers where I think that is just like kind of their prime market or community liaisons. So what's nice is a little bit different from like senior living community. It's like we've got an actual building station versus home health and home hospice. Like those are all services that can really travel, which is awesome and amazing to have. So I would say the biggest two when I have gone out there, especially rehab centers, people who are just in there for like 3 to 6 weeks, where it's like, okay, we know that they're not going to be safe behind closed doors or, at their apartment. How do we help transition that? I mean, I am a fan of the holidays. I think everyone just, enjoys the warm hugs, the hot cocoa gifts, and this and that. But I've noticed too, it's like I'm not the only one doing that. I'm not setting myself apart a little bit differently. And then I think too we do like market analysis, see who the other senior living communities are, and actually knowing like what sets us apart. Because I feel like everyone kind of offers everything similar, or we might look and feel a little bit similar, but there's those one key differences that each community has that might spark somebody else's interest or a family's interest. Is lakeside living like important? It's like, okay, we actually do offer that. Or do they want everything on like one floor and they need an assisted living? Well, we don't have any apartments on the first floor, like they're towers. So it's just like finding out like who's out there, what can you offer over another organizations. And then the other thing too is like even like talking about your community or talking about your background when you're actually like heading to the doctor's office, because chances are they might be working with a senior. especially your primary care provider. I guess this is also a PSA to get your physical done. But that's just an opportunity of just like, how do you help bridge the gap in different areas? Or if you attend churches, not necessarily kind of always having like your work hat on, or at least that, that you can kind of like help support. And even too, from like different community partnerships, we've partnered with different scouting organizations, like elementary schoolers where they come in for trick or treating. Are they our ideal lead? Probably not, but they've got grandparents, they've got great grandpas and grandmas, and just leveraging that on just like, hey, we actually had a Eagle Scout complete their project of raised garden beds, and it's like instant connection. Like, wow, they support like the Scouts or whatever it may be, or they support so and so elementary school, or they support this basketball team. So I think just leveraging that, where it's like, yes, having those quality leads.
Absolutely. That it does make me think like you never really know where a referral is going to come from. And so it's always fun. Like I always think of Halloween because we had so many kids running around our
Yes.
community. And it is sometimes when you're in that moment and the kids are screaming everywhere and your residents are dressed up and you're like, okay, great. Like this isn't, getting referrals, but looking back on that, I'm like, okay, but the residents had a great time. And so that's building their referral knowledge. So when they talk about the community, they have all of these positive experiences to talk about. And then invite your referral sources to that. Invite your home care, your home health agencies to that. We always did a big costume contest, and one of our home care agencies beat us like 3 years in a row because they would do, everybody in their group would dress up. One time they did the whole Wizard of Oz get up. And I'm like, okay, like, yes, they were doing it. So, like, invite them into the community. And we've talked about how that's, going to put them in front of the residents. But I think you never know where a referral is going to come from. And so you do always have to have that work hat on. And I think even now I get phone calls and text messages about the community I worked at and other communities in our area because I know a good bit about them and I'm in the industry. So even not being in senior living, you're still going to get asked about it and be able to make those referrals. So you definitely always have to
Yeah.
keep that work hat on.
Yes,
Um,
and some referrals too, if I can just add that, like I didn't think of, but some of our sister campuses utilize obviously real estate agents. They're probably doing an estate sale for a senior. Like, how can you like have some type of incentive or partnership with them? The other thing, insurance agents, like you never think about this, but if somebody's, home, is destroyed by a fire and they need placement, why not move into that senior community for just that short amount of time versus living out of a hotel? I mean, it works, but it's just like it might be more cost effective for them to move into like your independent living for the 90 days or whatnot.
right.
So yes, that was when our sister communities connected with somebody at a networking event, and they're like, "Hey, I'm trying to find placement for X, Y, and Z," and the hotel's not really cutting it for them. So
Yeah, we had I'm glad you brought up real estate agents. I don't know why that one didn't come to mind. We had a real estate agent that we were partnered with. And so when people would come in and they would tour the community and they would be like, "Oh, we're just researching. Like we haven't even put our house on the market. We're probably looking like 6 months out." We're like, "Okay, give our buddy a call. He can sell your house in 30 days. Like you're gonna
Mhm.
be ready to move." So yeah, real estate agents are a huge one. And that's, going back to thinking across the ecosystem. So I'm going to encourage everybody to create a referral rhythm. So let's talk about how we can do that. I say take 10 to 20 referral partners, which sounds like a lot, but I promise they're all around you. So think all across the ecosystem, not only senior living, home care, home health. Think about those hospitals. Maria brought up PCPs. Drop off your business card when you go get your yearly physical. Financial advisors are a huge one. Churches are probably one of the biggest, and I'll touch on that in just a second. Senior centers, veteran organizations, even community groups. Think about who is interacting with your ideal customer before they need you. So, what is
Mhm.
your ideal customer doing before they need you? And for some of you guys, that might mean they're having surgery and they're going to need help when they get home. But for some of you, it's they're living their normal independent life and then they're ready to sell their home. So think about where your ideal prospect is before they come to you and start picking out referral partners there. And then keep in mind that your goal is to have a relationship with them. It's not just to get those referrals, it's to have that symbiotic working relationship where you know what's going to benefit them and they know what's going to benefit you. And you also know the struggles that you have. And then you need to set a contact cadence. Now, this is where it gets
Mhm.
kind of hard because we all know that we can't say every Tuesday we're going to go out and do community outreach and we're going to be gone for 4 hours. That would be lovely if, we could
If
say that we're
anyone
going to be
has a
there.
solution for that, let us know. If
Right.
anyone has an extra hour in their day, let us know.
Right. I can take it. Let me know. Um, but then think about what your next step is. So if you don't have a cadence set and you haven't reached out to your referral sources recently, maybe it's just a quick message that said, "Hey, I was just thinking about you and I just wanted to say hello." Just put your name in their head again and then try to be consistent with it. So I love talking about how one of our biggest referral sources when I worked in my community was a local church. We found out I was doing a tour one day at the same time the sales director was doing a tour, and we passed each other in the hallway. And then 30 minutes later, we finally got our prospects away from each other because they had been going to church together for the last 25
Oh,
years. And so as our community began to fill up, we pretty much just got everybody from the church. They all went to church together and had been for forever and ever. And so we started using that to our advantage. We actually bought an ad in the church bulletin every week that had our community's logo and an opportunity to schedule a tour with us. We started attending events that they were hosting, but then we also had them come into our community. So we started poaching their Sunday school teachers to lead service on Sunday. We started doing Bible study on Wednesdays and singing and devotions on Tuesdays. And before we knew it, 7 days a week, we had some type of religious service going on from members from this church. And so I always like to bring that up because the church is not always a referral source that I think of, but it was one of our biggest ones. And it's just because we were really leveraging that relationship that we had with them. And they sent us lots of great qualified leads, and we were able to kind of help them out as well. So, are there any kind
that's
of
awesome.
outside of the box referrals that you have, Maria?
I just love that because it's always like churches are in the back of my mind. It's like they meet every week. Like they've actually got sometimes a better cadence than not myself sometimes. So that's just really special. We've in the past worked with like different referral agencies, especially if like occupancy like gets hit pretty badly, and it's just like, okay, how do we leverage, but also help them as well? Because sometimes if we're full, it's like, okay, who can be the matchmaker for them to find that independent living community? So yeah, it's been fun. I think our biggest too is like just more word of mouth. And so real quick history on St. Catherine Commons. We used to be a hospital way back when in Kenosha. They tore down and then built us up. So there were some people that used to like work at the hospital. So they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I just wanted to like scope it out or see what it's like." Like I used to work here, and I was like, "Well, they did tear down, built us up, kept a couple relics, but it's just fascinating to see like alumni of the hospital where they're like, I had a kid there, I used to be a nurse there," and then we're getting to a point where it's like people were actually born here. So it's
That's
just like,
cool.
wow. So I
Yeah.
think that's just really fascinating too, because just that name, just the story behind all that is really special. And then we actually had every year we choose a community and charitable partner. So like our big chili cook-off events, proceeds go to a charitable partner. And so we've worked with an elementary school before, we've worked with a choir before, but I would say the most successful one was actually connecting with with the senior center. So I don't know if other states have this, but we've got a local Kenosha Senior Center where it's just like, okay, this is your prime market. These are the people that we need them. They need us. So it's just been really special, just the word of mouth through that. How can we provide support financially because they are a nonprofit versus how can they in turn, you know, speak the great news that St. Catherine Commons has for us. And so we do have that enjoy life philosophy because you should enjoy life at any age. So it's just really special with like a senior center where it's like they focus on the programming for seniors and the health and wellness and all that. So that's just been a really good partnership. They've always been there. Like people just randomly, would move in because it's like they're seniors. But now it's like, how do we bridge the gap so it's a little bit stronger so we're actually top of mind for them, being in their newsletter. So similar to kind of that church bulletin that you were talking
Yeah.
about, but on a consistent basis, we're month to month. So it's like, okay, let's actually develop a 12-month plan. So we can both, win-win. And at the end of the day, the senior themselves like feel empowered to like be a part of two different communities all within like one county.
Right. That's awesome. I'm glad you brought up senior centers. We have one here locally that we partnered with as well, and they're really cool. They offer transportation to different areas. So we ended up partnering where we would pay for the event, but they would transfer some of their seniors over. And the biggest
Oh,
one that it always stays front of mind because it was so fun was we would do Wii bowling tournaments. So like
yes.
the Nintendo Wii. This is if you thought bingo was big, Wii bowling is a whole nother level. I
Yeah.
will never forget. I stayed at the community one night and I woke up because I heard noise at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was one of my residents practicing Wii bowling at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he kept getting strikes, which, alerts cheers. But I just remember that, like keeping them all so excited and building those connections. And when you build the connections between residents and prospects, well, they're gonna move in because they've already made friends. So I definitely think staying front of mind. Somebody in the chat said barber shops. That's
Ooh.
genius. That is a great place to go.
Can I
Okay,
piggyback off of
so
Wii Bowling real quick? We actually
yeah.
have a Bowling tournament with one of our sister campuses where there's a traveling trophy. So we actually have it on our front desk now, so bragging rights. But it just kind of sparks some things where it's just like, hey, if there's a community partner, home health agency, hospice company, in-home care that would be like, hey, there should be like a traveling trophy to all the different senior livings that they're a part of. And it's like, I don't know what that is, whether it's a Wii Bowling competition or what. But then that's top of mind. It's sitting at the front desk, So it just a spark, like it sparks conversation versus, we've all got our beautiful brochures out there, but it's like, okay, what sets us apart? So, anyways, I just thought of that with like Wii Bowling traveling trophies. Think about it, guys.
Yeah. I love that. So one thing that we've kind of bounced on is resident referrals. How do you kind of utilize resident referrals? How do you promote them?
Yes, a lot of things. This is actually one of my favorites because I feel like this is our strong suit when it comes to word of mouth, just because. So Kenosha, if any of you guys have been there, the population's pretty high, but a lot of people are Kenosha natives where they've been here their entire life. So I actually do kind of one of two things. One, we actually have an incentive where it's like if you refer somebody and they move in, they get a discount off of their rent, the person that made the referral. The other thing is I've actually asked for Google reviews. So I've actually capitalized on SalesMail because it made sometimes the awkwardness on just be like, here, can you leave us a referral and this and that.
Right.
So sending them but letting them know, like let's say 2, 3 weeks, even though like a month after they move in, checking in with the family and just be like, hey, I know it was an overwhelming process to move your loved one into our assisted living or memory care. So I just applaud you guys for being proactive, and it's just been so special to see X, Y, and Z thrive in the environment, and then let the family know, like we've seen them be involved. We see them they have like a bridge club and this and that. Because then families are like, oh. And then the key thing that I share in these video message in these sales mail is just like it gives us an opportunity for like the Google reviews and referrals. It gives us the opportunity to know how we're doing, but it also helps families navigate that process. And so it's kind of like one of two things on just like the referrals coming from the beautiful Google review or the referrals coming on just like, hey, I really enjoyed working with Maria here at St. Catherine Commons. So yeah, so those are kind of really two big tidbits that have worked and have just been such a success for us.
I love that. Google reviews have become one of the biggest things. People are always asking for them, and you're 100% correct. It's super awkward to be like, hey, can you leave us a Google review? And you always know when somebody is having like a Google review contest because then it's like that's all the outreach. It's kind of fun. But I love leveraging the relationship you've already made with people. Like, and I love it too, even if they didn't move into your community. Like, hey, we still have this great relationship because we've gotten to know each other. And just because you didn't end up moving here doesn't mean that other people shouldn't know about this place. So I love asking for Google reviews. Obviously, I love using SalesMail to do it. And I just applaud you for doing that. Those videos are so great to watch.
Yeah, so it's a win-win too, because it's just like they sparked, we got some extra stars. And that's kind of the first go-to place when people, search you guys.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we jump into what we should do today to start working with our referral partners, are there any questions from the chat on what we've talked about today? We love to set up at our local farmers market with our senior center. That's awesome.
Oh, farmers market's so big in the summer.
It is hot down here. I need to find an indoor farmers market around here. Someone said we offer 2,000 if a resident makes a referral and they move in after 30 days. We write them a check for $2,000. I do remember in our community we had one of those like mega checks, and the
Yes.
residents loved when we brought those out. Someone said, "Can I borrow your wheat?" They're hard to come by now. You have to find them on eBay since they don't make them anymore.
Oh my
And
goodness, I
you
didn't
would
realize they don't make them anymore.
no, they don't make them anymore. So getting replacement parts for them is kind of a hassle. But I donated one that we had at our house to the senior living community that I worked at because we ended up having so many people playing that we had to have more than one system so that they could play all together.
Ooh. Well, here's an
But yeah.
opportunity too that if anyone can find a Wii console game, what a prime opportunity to, plaster your sticker on there and just be like, all these Wii competitions or Wii game clubs are sponsored by X, Y, and Z organization. Like that is like prime marketing that you'll like forever have because it'll just be engraved on this Wii.
Well, we talked about picking out our referral sources, the questions we're going to ask them, and how to start that cadence. But let's talk about what you can do today because taking 10 or 20 and talking to all of them today might be a large feat. So I'm going to say pick your top three. And start by identifying something that they need that has nothing to do with sending referrals. And so, a big thing that's kind of been recurring is educating them or them educating you. I think that's a big thing is sending resources, making sure that you have an understanding of each other and the services you provide. Reach out with something valuable or helpful, make a personal connection, and then schedule your next touch point. So,
Mhm.
even if it's just a reminder on your calendar or a sticky note on your monitor, I do recommend putting something so that you can stay consistent. But the most important part of that referral connection that you're going to make is don't ask them for a referral. Just make the connection first, and then the referrals will come naturally once you've made that relationship. So I want to bring it back to the goal isn't to build a big referral list. It's to build a network of people who trust you enough to put your name in front of a family when it matters. So when you're having those highly emotional and high level conversations with families, who comes front of mind for you, and how do you make sure that you are going to be front of mind for them? Maria, anything that you want to add on that?
Yeah, I would say too, and one thing that I've also been focusing on going out into the community is one, obviously the message, like what sets you apart. But I also kind of want to dive into a little bit of like your color, like what are you wearing? What is something that's like memorable to you? So I know Sarah, when we hopped on this Zoom, it's just like, oh my gosh, you remember pretty much anyone that you talk to in sales mail, you like know they're green. So it's like, what's the color? Are you wearing, and I say this because I actually just recently listened to a color analysis presentation, which was fascinating, where it's just like, what sets you apart? Because sometimes they might not remember the organization you're in, or they'll be like, oh, the girl that was wearing blue. So it's just like, what is one thing that, whether it's the item that you're giving them that stands out? Because if you're giving them the same brochure that everyone else has, like, just make sure that there's like just a pop, whether it's in your story or in the attire that you're wearing. But yeah, I don't know if that's really helpful, but it just kind of made me spark some interest kind of listening to that and knowing like, okay, what sets me apart? Not
Yeah.
necessarily just my message, but subconsciously first impressions like last a very, very long time.
Absolutely. And the way you communicate, whether it be your facial expressions, your body language, or the tone that you construe the message that you're sending. So if you go in somewhere and you're talking about your community and you're like, well, we have like a three-story place and it's got like 100 apartments and like people live there, that's great. But if you are passionate about your community and you can pick out the key details, like we offer 3 meals a day. They're hot meals. The resident have options. We have robust activities, and you can do monthly, weekly, or even daily activities. A huge one is when they all get together and play bingo, and we have to tell them that they cannot, in fact, holler across the community. So like talking about your community or about the services that you offer, people are going to be able to read your energy. And so that I think goes back to always wearing your work hat and really loving what you do. And so that's kind of really the theme of all of this is we are all working together to help seniors. So
Mhm.
if you are in it for the right reasons, which I know we all are, then we know that this is not a transactional sale and there are a lot of emotions involved. And so how can we help one another make sure that our seniors are taken care of, they're in the right spot, they feel comfortable, and they are allowed to love life at any age, like Maria
Yeah.
said. So,
Yeah.
Maria, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight on how to build the best referral relationships. And thank you for being such a great friend and customer and partner. We love having these conversations with you. Was there anything else that you wanted to add about building relationships with your referral partners or any takeaway from today's conversation?
No, I just appreciated the dialogue. So thank you. And definitely, I think a lot of the times, us all living in different states, like we're fascinated by what other communities are doing. So I would just love to just see that. So definitely stay connected on LinkedIn as well, because that helps spark ideas here that in the Midwest that we might not have, that you guys have down south or wherever you guys are. So excited to continue to cheer you all on.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, you guys that have joined on both Zoom and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and I hope you are ready to make those connections with your referral sources. This video will be posted on YouTube so you can catch it again in the future. Hope you all have a great day and thank you for joining.
Bye.